Go ahead yourself, yeah.
My name is Nicholas. I'm an outreach worker with 414 Life. Why am I here? Because gun violence is a major problem in every community now. And it's something that has to be addressed. We don't have these difficult conversations, then it'll never get addressed.
My name is Carmelo Knight. I'm here with Mentor Greater Milwaukee, and I'm here to not only educate myself, but also give a perspective that other people might not see.
Okay, my name is Adeline Gent. I am a high school senior working with March for Our Lives. I've been working with them for about 4 years now. I have done a lot of on-the-ground organizing as well as getting folks involved all across Wisconsin with March for Our Lives and the gun violence prevention movement in general.
I'm Eileen Carney. I'm also an organizer with March for Our Lives Wisconsin, and I'm a former intern at WAVE. And I'm here because of the effect of gun violence on young people. We've seen a large uptick in the effect on young people. Guns are now the leading cause of death for youth. So just seeing that in every aspect of our lives is, why I'm here.
I'm Tyler Bruinig, and I'm a high school senior, and I'm here with Ada and Eileen for March for Our Lives. And I, like Carmelo said, I'm just here to educate myself as well as provide a young perspective on gun prevention and how important it is for everyone.
Awesome. I guess kind of the first question that I want to ask is, what is the first time that you feel like you were personally affected by gun violence, whether that be in like some sort of a active shooter drill, or do you have any experience with friends or family that have been affected by gun violence? We can go the other way. Let Tyler kick us off.
It's not exactly a direct gun violence experience, but I remember I saw a video on social media once, which was this person, I think it was they were speaking in Florida, and they were saying how people in the LGBT community deserve to be lined up in front of a wall and shot in the back of the head. And that was just like my first experience of seeing someone advocating for gun violence so aggressively, and it was genuinely scary. And I remember after watching that video, I sat in my room just absolutely shocked that anyone could advocate for that. Why would you want to do that to people? Why would you want to take away everything from them so certainly? And that was just very scary and very shocking and surprising.
The threat of gun violence has been a prominent part of my life since I can remember. I think our generation has a very unique experience with the rise of school shootings and lockdown drills. We've been practicing them since elementary school, since we were in kindergarten. I'll talk with older people, I'll talk with my father, and he doesn't have that same experience. He hasn't practiced lockdown drills, every year at school, but it's become such a prominent part of our school experience and something that frankly we have normalized, in our school communities. So it's always been a very big part of my life in that aspect.
Yeah, I think I'll echo a little bit of what Eileen said. I don't directly remember hearing about Sandy Hook, but I do remember my parents giving me a really big hug when I had to go to school the next time. And looking back, I don't remember, I probably would have been 5 or 6. I had no clue of why they were doing that, but I just remember the extra concern that they had for me just going to elementary school. But the first time I think I really realized what gun violence was I was in 5th grade, and my beloved 5th grade teacher was doing our yearly gun violence drill, which we've done forever, our yearly lockdown drill, and she mentioned that she would do anything she could to protect us, but if something went wrong, we had to find ways to protect ourselves. We had to find scissors or chairs to defend ourselves with. And I think that was the first time it really hit me that this was something that a little kid had to be scared of.
Yeah, and it's a shared experience. I remember immediately after Parkland, we had a very normal conversation in my high school band class of which marching band instrument would make the best weapon if a school shooter came. And that's just not something students should have to think about. It connects directly. I joined the movement as an advocate without necessarily having personally been affected by gun violence. But then my freshman year of college, the college bar right across the street from Carthage, where I attend, had a mass shooting almost exactly 2 years ago. And what I took away most from that is that we didn't really take a second and like act surprised. Just kind of like, oh yeah, that's something that's going to happen in your life as a young person. You're going to be, you're going to be affected by gun violence, and then life's going to move on, and you're going to go to work the next day. So yeah, that's what scared me the most.
This wouldn't be my first time that I was introduced to like something to do with gun violence. I feel like it's been prevalent for the majority of my life. But I think the first time it really scared me right away was I was at a football game with a bunch of my friends, and then on our way out, there was a few altercations, like all the way out through the gates and everything. And so once we got out there, if you know anything about football games, you know usually there's gonna be an incident that occurs. So we were all just outside joking about what was happening, and then somebody came and flew by and was shooting. And so we're all running away from where they were just fighting at because we assume that they're shooting in retaliation of whatever just happened. And it really, I realized that it was that serious here, like once we were all away from it, because then I'm worried about where are my friends? Where are the people that I saw running that have disappeared completely? Who was shooting? Like all these things are going through my head. And of course, luckily everybody was okay that I knew, but like there was somebody that was shot that night, and it was serious, and it could have been any one of us because some people wanted to be in a crowd and push fights all the way throughout, and then somebody else decided to escalate it.
When I was 18 years old, I was shot multiple times. And then I know multiple people who were shot but did not survive. But I also know multiple people who were shot and did survive. And I see the impact it has on families and multiple people. Mothers are suffering. Every time somebody gets killed, you just hurt that whole family. And so, Milwaukee is really small. So just on a local level, when you hurt one family, you're hurting a lot of people. You're hurting friends. And you gotta think about it, if we're having 200 something murders a year, right? This means that the whole city is being impacted in some type of way by gun violence.
Yeah.
So glad you're here.
I'm glad you guys are here.
Echoing that, I think it's really powerful to see a room full of people older than us ready to sit back and listen and really hear what we have to say. So I just want to express on behalf of the entire panel appreciation for that. I guess a couple of people touched on lockdown drills in schools. I guess my next question is going to be, have they been a part of all of your educational experiences? Have they had any impact on you or your friends personally? Kick it off this way again.
Has gun violence had it?
Lockdown drills is specifically.
Lockdown drills. I wouldn't say it really had like lockdown drills really had an impact on me personally. I'm pretty sure that there was a lot of people that it did have an impact on. But I know that gun violence was prevalent in our communities. You would hear about people getting into shootouts outside of school. Somebody would die, and then they would like announce it, that so and so died in a shootout. Things like that was going on in high school. A lot of people had access to guns at a young age. And you know, when you give somebody who isn't mentally developed and they may not be in the best environment, when you give them access to a firearm, you know, 1 + 1 always equals 2. And so it's like that's more of how I experienced it. And I realized that our minds were corrupted at a real young age. It was the way that we were thinking and the way that we were influenced and the way that we were shaped and molded.
I think that a lot of what he said rings true. Like over time, you start to become numb to everything going on around you, and especially if it's not happening directly to you, you start to think, oh, this is just something that happens, but it won't happen to me, or oh, this is just something that will happen throughout life. But my school does a lockdown drill. I believe we do 2 code red drills a year, and my freshman year of high school, we had a code red drill, and there was a girl who was like bawling, like crying her eyes out because they never told us that it was a drill. So we literally were all sitting in class. We went from code yellow to code red in the middle of class, and none of us knew what was happening. I think one of my teachers said, like, in retrospect, that they never sent out an email that they were doing the drill either. So that's why the teachers weren't prepared for the drill either. And I think, like, even before my freshman year, when we would have those drills, we didn't take them as seriously as it should have been taken. Like, on paper, you would think practicing this drill would prepare them for this to happen, but really it was never taken seriously because you don't understand the impact of it until you get old enough to realize, like, okay, this is something that will really happen and this is how those things will impact us. So yeah, I think I don't know. I don't really have a direct opinion on doing them in schools, but it has had an impact.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think any of us are necessarily qualified to say, oh, do the benefits of a lockdown drill outweigh the cost, but we can conclude that I think they have an impact on young people. And I remember in high school, I had a similar experience of everyone would kind of joke around during lockdown drills. But I think a part of that is that we don't say out loud, but we probably should, is I don't know how ready kids are to process what they're doing. And I think a really good coping strategy is joking around, because you don't want to think about, well, what if this wasn't a drill? And every time it happens, a lot of times the drills are unannounced. You're just, assuming the best. So it's very scary. I guess I kind of have one story of irony, which is actually the day that we founded the 80% Coalition, 2018. A couple of people in the room were there at this press conference. I was almost late because I was stuck in an active shooter drill that I wasn't able to plan for. And that's just kind of I guess in some ways shows just what I think young people deal with. I go to what would be called the safe school, right? And one where you wouldn't think about violence generally, but I guess this was the way that at my school people really were experiencing gun violence Yeah,
I think of 2 things when I think of lockdown drills and how they affect young people. The first one that I think of is when I was in middle school, probably 7th grade. So we would have been 12 or 13. I was in art class, and a lockdown drill was announced, and so we all went and hid in the corner under the painting table. One kid was joking around. We were all shoulder to shoulder, and then one kid just started crying out of nowhere, because just the thought as a 12-year-old, what if this is the time where it is us? We see it in the news almost weekly. And gun violence occurs every single day in America. But what if this is the time where it affects us? And it was just one of those moments where you're sitting next to this kid crying and you don't know what to do because you're 12 under an art table. And the other time I think of was 2 months ago. I went from my charter school to the public school to take my math class, and I walk in. I have to ring the doorbell to the office because it's always locked, and the office workers have to let you in, and then you have to sign a pass. which is in and of itself kind of odd. And I was told that I can't leave the office, and I was given no other reason. So I just sat in the office for probably about 20 minutes because I didn't know I didn't know anything. I genuinely thought that something really, really terrible could have been happening at that moment. Turns out some kid just had a bloody nose down the hallway, but no one told us anything, and it hit me just like how scared I was, because you don't know. I think the scariest thing about lockdown drills that I've experienced is the unknowns.
For me, it's really heartbreaking how universal of an experience this is. If you don't have a story of a lockdown drill where you don't know what was going on, you probably know someone who does, your friend, or someone else. And frankly, lockdown drills frustrate me because, first of all, why are we subjecting children to this fear, to this trauma that will likely stay with them for the rest of their lives? And also, why are we asking young people to protect themselves in these drills instead of our leaders actually doing something to prevent the violence in the first place? It feels like a Band-Aid on the issue, and so when people talk about lockdown drills as a solution to gun violence or as this positive thing, it frustrates me, it makes me angry, because it doesn't feel like we're doing enough. It feels like people are telling us that the violence is inevitable, that it's gonna happen to us, so we better know what to do when it does happen.
Piggybacking off of that, I do want to say, during lockdown drills in my school, I've always, they call the lockdown drill, and then you go grab the desks and you put them up against the door and you line them up to the other wall of the room. But I've always thought to myself, is that really enough? Will that really stop someone? These are desks that we sit in for listening to lectures, and now we're using them to block a door, and that's just, it feels really unprepared, and it feels like we're not going to be able to stop someone by just putting desks up against a door. And also, I just lost my train of thought, actually.
Awesome. I guess there were kind of some similar themes at the end of the last two responses that I'd love to piggyback off of. I see a lot of young people getting engaged out of a feeling of need in gun violence prevention. What are you doing? What are you seeing your classmates doing to prevent gun violence? And I'll kick it off to Tyler. I'll also speak up. I'm just seeing a lot of panelists or a lot of audience members trying to hear. Yeah, appreciate it.
In my school, I don't actually see a lot of students doing much to prevent gun violence because, as Carmelo did say, a lot of people don't take it seriously because they see it on their screens every day, but screens aren't reality. They don't see it in person. So there's that's never gonna happen to me. And that's part of why I think things like this are so important, is because you get to see it in person. You get to see people who have actually been hurt by gun violence, and it makes it so much more real than social media makes it out to be. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah, echoing the importance of things like this, I've seen a lot of community building in my community and in my school, and I think that is just so important in preventing violence on the ground in communities. Echoing what was said in the first presentation, we need to create those safe spaces, and I think youth have a very big role in that, and they are at the forefront of creating those places where harm can be prevented, and and I've seen that at my school, and it's very inspiring to see young people talking about these things, and just building trusting spaces where violence can just be eradicated.
Yeah. I have seen incredible organizing over the past 4 years, especially from young people, but from everyone, and a lot of the folks who are here today. And I think that the most important thing that I've seen my peers do to help stop gun violence or help support the gun violence prevention movement is just working with each other, like a couple of the folks have said before. Like, it is a team effort. No one in this room is going to do it by themselves. And you need people on the ground. You need people in hospitals. You need people in the courtroom. You need people in the state capitol. And it is just really, really incredible to see, especially young people, get out there and start to take up those spaces.
Yeah. I love all the young people organizing, but I'm going to answer completely differently. And I think it's just because I'm a little bit older than the high school panelists. I've done a lot of work trying to get out the vote on my college campus. And there's something that I've seen that's been really interesting when talking to, especially like what you traditionally call like a apathetic voter or somebody that doesn't follow politics all the time. And that's that they kind of know that they need to do the simple act of voting. It's like not as much of an argument as you may say. Like, I think young people are like presented as like, oh, they don't pay attention to politics. They don't see the world around them. They don't care. It's just not true. If you look at the numbers, like college students are voting more than they ever have before. And it doesn't take much convincing from my personal experience on the ground. And I think it's because of issues like gun violence. I think you've had a lot of hours sitting in your school on a lockdown drill. Maybe you're thinking, should I be doing this? And I guess I'll kick it off there. Yeah.
I would say, as far as like classmates, because that was what you kind of were hinting at, right? Like
whatever you want, yeah, sure.
I don't see much. I don't see much that my classmates do to help with gun violence prevention, and I think that's like, honestly, thinking about it, that's probably the worst part of it, is that a lot of people don't feel the need to go and educate themselves on a topic, or to go and try to help stop something that they know harms a lot of people, just because they feel like there's something better they could be doing. And it's stuff that you could be doing better. Like, it's not something so much more important. It's something as simple as going home and playing the game. It's when you could be attending something like this, or when you could be doing outside research about things that you feel like are actual problems in your school. But as far as myself, I would honestly say that gun violence prevention was not in the forefront of my mind. It was always something like, oh yes, I know this is an issue, and oh yes, I know that there are people who fight for this issue, but it was never something that I directly was involved with. I learned a lot from conversations that I have with classmates, just like hypothetical conversations we have. We talk about stuff all the time, and it's just like seeing that mindset of, I need a gun to protect me when we aren't even of legal age to own a gun is concerning. With all the new artists emerging from Milwaukee and music videos coming out, you see how many young people who are younger than me, like kids not even in high school, have guns that are longer than my legs, and it's concerning. So it's just something that makes me think about it a lot more lately, which is why I'm here today.
Seeing as gun violence is a problem of humanity, I believe that it's the duty of everybody in here to address the problem of gun violence. God gifted humanity with the gift to think higher. So when we look at the brain, we see that we have a reptilian brain, we have a mammalian brain, which is the limbic system, which deals with emotion, but then we have a cerebrum, right? And the cerebrum allows us to think on a higher level. but we also have it in us to think like an animal. We need to learn how to develop the human potential. We need to learn how to problem solve. What is in us? What is wrong with our thinking that would make us reach for a gun and take somebody's life? Is that how we solve our problems? So this means that there's a problem with the mind, in that this means that we need to develop the human one. The human being needs to learn how to deal with his emotions. The human being needs to learn how to properly deal with his problems. And we all have it in us. We all have the potential to do it. Look at the building that we're sitting in. This came out of somebody's mind. Somebody was thinking higher. He came out with a plan and then he executed. That's what all of us have to do. Or we can be a victim, you know? So.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna give the panel, or the question that I hate answering the most, that I get a lot in like these kind of things, which is, you're a young person. How do you see the future coming? Are you hopeful? Do you think that there's solutions on the horizon? Do you think we're gonna do better? We're gonna do worse?
Well, out of chaos comes order. So as the dissatisfaction grows out of the problems of the world, there becomes a need. And out of that need, humanity produces a person that would save us out of this need. And that's why we're here addressing these problems, because we see a problem and we're dissatisfied with that problem. So we're here. So out of the chaos of what's happening in society, has produced this conversation. And so as the problems gets worse, and the problems gets worse, us as humans is gonna force us to use our higher levels of thinking to solve this issue. So it might have to get real dark for us to get the point, but at least we'll get the point.
I agree with what he said, like especially that last part. I feel like I'm hopeful for the future, of course. I know people and I meet people all the time who are younger than me or about the same age as me that make me hopeful for the future, that let me know, like, keep me calm and, oh, okay, everything's gonna be fine by the time I get older. But like, then there's also that point of what's actually happening around us. Like, we can make those changes, but there's so much time that has to pass before those changes have an impact on us. And I think it's gonna have to go down to the darkest depths of whatever the issue is before it finally becomes, this is something that has to change permanently, rather than a bunch of smaller solutions to solve the problem at the time. And then when the problem comes up again, then you do another small solution. So I think that's how it's gonna look.
Yeah. I agree with what was said previously for sure. I'm hopeful that we're getting there. There's a lot of people in this room, even more people upstairs. I was talking with some of the like super veteran gun violence prevention activists that are here who have been doing this work for like 30 plus years. They were saying, I don't really remember anything like this conference ever happening before, you know? They were saying generally when you have something that takes a day, a weekday, that y'all are, you know, taking off of work or school or whatever you're usually doing on a fine Thursday, they usually struggle to get 100 people, and there's far more than 100 people here. So yeah, I am hopeful that we're getting closer, but I do agree that like it's horrible how far we've had to come to get to that point.
Yeah. I think I have to be hopeful. I don't know if I can fully answer the question if I am hopeful, but there is no other option. There is the only way that we can do this work is with the belief that it's going to get better, no matter how much time, no matter how much work it'll take. I have all the faith in the world in our generation. We have done incredible things so far, and we will continue to do that as more of us can vote, as more of us can run for office, as more of us can get on the ground. But I also am truly saddened at how long it has been. and how deep we've gone, like you guys have mentioned, that I don't know if I want to say that it'll take even more time. I don't know how I want to say this, but I have to be hopeful, and I have more and more faith that I will be hopeful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, echoing that, I think, it's exhausting being in gun violence prevention work, as I'm sure all of you know, but it's important to try and not get cynical and try and remain hopeful, as Ada said, because that's the only way that we can move forward. And just being in spaces like this, it gives me hope. Seeing everyone come together, so, kind of just echoing what everyone said. I am hopeful for the future, and I think that young people have absolutely a place in this, and I think it's on everybody to commit to doing the hard work, to commit to being uncomfortable, having these conversations, putting time and energy into this, and I thank you all for doing exactly that.
I just want to say that I don't think any of us would be here if we weren't hopeful, if we didn't believe that all this work and effort that we're putting into this issue would come to fruition. And we're trying so hard, and I don't think you could try that hard if you didn't believe that it was going to work. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, appreciate it. I guess I could put a little bit of a number to this. I don't think it was said in the general session yet, so I'm probably providing a spoiler, and I'm not that sorry. But 40% of the people that registered for this conference said this is the first time that they've done gun violence prevention activism today.
That's great, yeah.
So yeah, and I guess if this youth perspective doesn't leave you with that little bit of hope, I hope that a little statistics will. I want to invite, I didn't get all of the young people in the room up here. If there's any young people that have additional stories that would be helpful, want to talk about their organizing work, I'd first like to invite any of them to take a couple of minutes. Yeah, let's hear from you. Yeah.
I can stand.
Come to the front.
Yeah, come on up.
Steal, stand.
There's a chair here.
Yes.
Oh yeah, let's go chair.
There's a chair.
Donate a chair.
Y'all-
Grab a chair. Each got a chair.
Y'all, thank you. Welcome. to
You're
Campus
welcome.
Crew.
Well, thanks for letting me. I guess what I just wanted to add on, and it came up kind of a bit in this, was emphasizing the power of youth votes, and that's something that I feel like is becoming more and more common. I'm lucky to say that I've had the opportunity to meet state representatives. I recently met with Tennessee State Rep Justin J. Pearson to talk and work with him.
Good.
And one thing that he said to me was that we are the movement, and I think that there's something to be said about acknowledging the power of youth and acknowledging that as we move on to the future and become eligible to vote and really get involved in politics, there needs to be more youth in elected positions, and there needs to be more youth. So that's just my little piece. I think as a young person, the support coming from adults, especially here in this room, and hearing y'all have confidence in us and knowing that we have your support from you means the world. And this is a connection that is needed for actual change and movement to happen. So, yeah.
I was gonna kind of say the same thing. Me and Kylie kind of work together with this stuff, and it's just like she said, it's so important, especially we and probably all the people here are really trying to get the message across to all of the people in our generation and really start to make change. And yeah, it's kind of yeah.
We can fit more chairs if anyone else wants to share their story. We still got lots of.
I can share. I can share right here. Hi everyone. My name is Mia Moore. I'm a part of Urban Underground, which is a youth leadership and social justice organization, also Mentor Greater Milwaukee. So I grew up in the Sherman Park neighborhood, which is like one of the largest areas in Milwaukee. Just growing up in the Sherman Park neighborhood, I was often wakened by the sounds of gunshots and sirens in the middle of the night. And one vivid memory that I have was when it was the Sherman Park uprising, when they were like burning down gas stations and due to police brutality, and there was just gunshots firing, like just flying. And so me and my mom were actually in the house because the whole block, it was a blackout, and just that feeling of just being scared and hearing gunshots outside my window, then my mom having to shield me and dropping to the floor. That's just a traumatizing memory that just lives in my head for free. So it's just things like that that I experienced at a young age that one, it makes me to advocate and help changes. So I also attend Rufus King High School, and there was a basketball game, a girls basketball game at our school, and young people from a different school had came over to our game or whatever, and there was an altercation outside of the school, and shots were being fired outside of the game. And so the game then had to go down on code red, like on lockdown. Nobody was able to get in or out, but there was 4 girls that ended up getting shot. Luckily, no one died, but still, like, regardless if they go to King, Riverside, Washington, like, these are young people at the end of the day. So just having that, just feeling that it happened at my school though, but kids were impacted, and that could have been anybody. So after that, the day after that, nobody said anything. Teachers, like, there wasn't any mental health support provided. It's like, this is being swept under the rug. Like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. And so nobody like said anything. So I'm like, okay, I'm part of student government. And I'm like, we need to do something because nobody's saying anything. This is like impacting us. And so I decided to do a walkout outside of our school so that we can acknowledge what happened, because this shouldn't be normal. Gun violence is not normal. It should not be normal. So I decided to lead a walkout. NPS was against it, completely against it. They did not want us to do this. I said, I'm gonna do this because I have nothing to lose. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand on this, and we're gonna walk out. Whoever wants to do this is gonna do it. Yeah. And so the day of, we ended up doing it. We decided to wear red because of like heart disease. And some people thought it was due to gang violence, and we had to explain the meaning behind why we're wearing red. And so we did a walkout. The day of, NPS said that we could do it, and that because they weren't gonna let us back into the school building if we decided to walk out. So, but NPS called and said that we were able to do the walkout. There would be safety outside. We ended up having threats as far as like people coming in, shooting up, of course. But we ended up doing the walkout. A lot of elected officials came out, David Bowen, David Crawley, Gwen Moore. A lot of the city just came to show their support, and like, we're not gonna sit here and tolerate this. And as students, we want to speak up and use our voices. So that's just my story as far as just having to deal with gun violence and how students are coming together to fight back against this. So thank you.
Are there any other students that want to share their perspective? I just see a couple more. Yeah, let's get a quick question.
So I'm not including myself and you guys. Yeah. I'm old. But I wanted to ask you guys a question, like, for your mental health regarding this activism and your trauma experiences. Do you find that that's being addressed, or can it be supported in any way?
Does anyone want to take that question?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. We are scooting.
It doesn't matter. It's very cool. Love that the panel just love it.
Yay! I guess I just wanted to touch on the fact, and I believe, I don't know who said it earlier, it was someone from March for Our Lives said that a lot of the things that are being done is a Band-Aid. And in my opinion, you know, I was recently reached out by a company that sells like bulletproof backpacks. You know, metal detectors in school, bulletproof backpacks, you know, increased door locks. Those are all, you know, hopeful strategies to prevent gun violence, especially in schools. But I think what's not being addressed enough is that it's creating a culture of fear.
Yes.
And it's a prevalent culture because gun violence in this society now is so normalized, as it's been said by each and every one of us. And each and every one of us up here has had, a shared experience with gun violence, whether it be directly or indirectly. And I think there is a definite need for increased student support and also support for teachers as well, because the teachers, coming from a school district, we go to a school district that's, more rural despite being 30 minutes out of Milwaukee. And you'd be surprised the amount of parents that cause the school as much pushback as they do. I mean, there's literally a Facebook group called Mugwanago Parents for Normal Education, whatever that may be. And there's a sense of fear that we can't speak out about this, and how if you're not someone who is willing to use their voice or, comfortable using your voice, there needs to be, increased support for those who are, taking the chance. And, some teachers are even risking job positions to speak out against this. So just finding supportive measures for those who are speaking out, but also supporting those who are going to school day to day and experiencing all these implemented measures.
I just wanted to touch on kind of the culture of fear topic. It's that especially in our generation, you go to school and you're scared, you're always scared of some type of gun violence happening. And I don't think there's enough being done with mental health and especially in schools. It's obvious and research has been done that is what helps the most, and yet nothing is being done. Especially me and Kylie go to a school of 2,000 plus students, and yet there's 4 some counselors that can actually help us. And the ability to, make a meeting and have them actually talk to you and not dismiss your problems and actually listen is something that's not being done. And if students want change, it takes so long for something even so small to happen, especially in kind of our school district, talking to, the representatives of the school. It's kind of, you just get dismissed. It's not important. And me and Kylie, we really try. We're vice president of SAVE, we're in student government, Kylie's on the school board, and even with all that power, we have such little voice.
The ageism is real.
I want to add something, and I don't think we're gonna have time for another question. I apologize, just because we're on a little bit of a time crunch. There's somebody in the room, but she's not in this breakout session. She must. So I guess one thing, my mom's currently doing is a social worker, once a school social worker. She's currently talking about domestic violence upstairs on the panel that's going on at the same time. And something that I talked to her about is how parents can be allies and how she can empower her network of friends. And I'm from Franklin, which is politically a similar community to Mugwanago, but we actually have a supportive school board in Franklin. It's a breaking of the trend. And there's a reason why, and it's because there's a group of moms in Franklin that have come together and they've said, no, we're not willing to have this happen. And we have our newest elected school board member, Mary Yank, I saw this morning, so she's somewhere around. And, she's not a teacher, right? She's not a former elected official. She's a mom, and she said, no, we're not going to let this happen. Previous to the organizing work that they started 4 years ago, there was not a single parent or teacher on the school board. It was all retirees looking to get their taxes cut and looking to stop the indoctrination. But, silently, school board races, you don't have to run with a political party next to your name. You don't need to be an outwardly political person, but you can have a huge impact and hold administrations accountable. Because when I was in high school, I had the same stuff. I just came off being student body president at Carthage, and one of our gracious trustees got to hear from me a good couple of times. But we push. Young people get good at pushing. But the nice part about school boards are they're elected. You can run at them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So run if you're eligible, and come speak at public comment sessions. It's really important.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'd like to hop in with another comment about mental health.
Of course.
As much we need more support for mental health with students in school, but we also need to find support systems for students outside of school. because gun violence has so many root causes that come from every walk of life. Like, no matter where you are, root causes of gun violence are there. So we need to find ways to support students outside of the 8 hours that you're in a school building. We need to find ways to combat hunger in the communities. We need to find ways to combat, I've blanked my entire list. Eileen, help me out here.
Housing insecurity.
Housing insecurity.
Yeah.
I've got a page-long list. But the root causes, yes, the root causes of gun violence are very prevalent, and that's what affects students a ton. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, let's get a closing comment.
Oh yeah, okay. I was gonna say no to what you said as well. I don't feel like there's enough support for mental health, especially around gun violence. I think that what I hear a lot about schools is that, and what I've noticed as well, at my school, I went to Golda High School, and we had, when I started, we had 2 school psychologists and 1 social worker. We're down to 1 school psychologist, and she's only at work 1 day a week, I believe. Wow. And so that responsibility to be there for those students and to, make sure they're okay mentally is put on the teachers. And, luckily for me at my school, all my teachers are great. Like they're great with that. They build those relationships with their students. They talk to them like, if you're having a bad day that day, all you have to do is go to your teacher like, hey, this thing happened. I need some time or whatever. And they'll understand that. But I know that doesn't echo throughout the rest of the district. And so when that responsibility falls on someone who feels like that's not something they should be doing, or who might feel like they're overstepping their boundary as a teacher, then it never gets addressed. And that can mess with a kid's entire everything, like the rest of their day, the rest of their year, anything that they were supposed to learn in your class that they just didn't because they couldn't do it that day. Like, it plays a big part in everything. So I would say that that's definitely something that needs to be more prevalent.
If I may add, I think like exactly what you said. It falls on teachers, but teachers are underpaid as hell. Like, fund our schools, fund resources, just support the school system, support teachers, and that will support kids.
So I don't get murdered by the organizer, I'm gonna finish us off almost on time. So thank you, panelists, for all of your comments. We'll be back upstairs for general session in 7 minutes.